Welcome everyone to our 9/11 20th anniversary service, ceremony, whatever we want to call it, just to recognize what happened on that particular day. I'd like to recognize a few distinguished guests: Trustee Karen Mills, Trustee Ann Newell, Trustee Gary Stanton, Trustee Michael Gatta, Trustee Karen Arnett, Village Clerk Bev Romanoff, Village Manager Eric Palm, Police Chief Kasia Cawley. Veterans Commission, assemble. Forward, march. You can do a full step. Halt. Right face. With the Hoffman States Police and Fire Color Guard, please present the colors.
Color Guard. Whole word. Color. Right. Turn. Detail. Halt. Prepare to post colors. Ready? Post. Three, cover. Three, set. Ho!
Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Ho! Left. Peace. Over. Guard.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Darren Falgenhauer. He has served the village of Hoffman for the past 24 years. He's a veteran of the Marine Corps and was recently awarded the American Legion Department of Illinois Officer of the Year Award. Lieutenant Darren Falgenhauer.
Thank you, Veterans Commission. Thank you, trustees and chief, for allowing me to speak with you today. On today's the 20th anniversary of the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history, especially on our own soil. As introduced, I'm Lieutenant Darren Falgenhauer of the Hoffman Estates Police Department. Served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah! Active duty for 24 years here as a Hoffman Estates police officer. Everybody remembers what they were doing or where they were on September 11th, 2001, when they first received news of the terrorist attacks. On that day, we witnessed acts of heroism from first responders, military members, and civilians. All first responders, military members, and government officials swear an oath and make a promise that we will protect and defend our country, state, and communities in the duties that every first responder in America has promised if ever called into action. On September 11th in 2001, we witness this dedication to the communities of which we serve. So why do we choose to remember 9/11? As a first responder, it's extremely important for us to remember that even though those attacks occurred over 800 miles away, they had an impact on every community, including our village. 19 terrorists conducted these attacks, which took over 2,977 lives on that day. Even more important today, more than ever, citizens understand that no matter the danger a first responder may face, we've promised to help and protect the people that we serve. A little over 400 first responders lost their lives on that day, attempting to save as many civilians as they possibly could. 20 years later, this concept of saving lives during very dangerous situations still rings true. It is unfortunate that in the United States there's been too many mass shootings. Every time one of these incidents occurs, it's first responders that are running towards that gunfire. 9/11/2001 was a highly publicized display of how our profession reacts. As communities, we've hardened our vulnerabilities, we've increased our oversight. On a national level, law enforcement agencies as well as intelligence agencies have better lines of communication and share information in real time. As first responders, we run towards that sound of gunfire and into burning buildings for the firemen. One of the most encouraging events that I took out of September 11th attacks was the reaction of the passengers and crew on board Flight 93. Normal, everyday citizens made a huge impact with limited information in a very short amount of time. Once they were able to determine that several other hijacked planes had been used as weapons, they resolved to fight. It is important for our community to understand that the government and our police departments will do all that is in our power to prevent another attack. However, it is each citizen that can make the difference. By staying vigilant, reporting suspicious activity and behavior, a future attack may just be prevented. This is what embodies the Department of Homeland Security's campaign of see something, say something. We remember so that we honor those who have sacrificed to help others. We remember in order to stay vigilant against future attacks against our democracy and our way of life. Now, I grew up on the East Coast, and as a teenager, I was able to visit New York City. I stood on top of the Twin Towers, back when they allowed you to get on top. They were an impressive monument to America. In 2014, I had an opportunity to again visit New York, and I visited the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, which are now in the footprint of those towers. I even had the opportunity to go up on the Freedom Tower before it was actually opened. It's a very impressive monument to those men and women that lost their lives on that day. Visiting these locations reminded me that as Americans, this event brought us closer and stronger. Terrorist organizations underestimate the resolve of the United States citizens. Our country was forged by the determination of a citizenry that is literally willing to fight for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When confronted by organizations that threaten our foundation, we as a community and a nation will come together despite any differences and resist those who threaten our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. At this time, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Fire Chief Alan Wax. The new Fire Chief Alan Wax has been in the fire service for over 40 years, has responded to emergency incidents of all kinds. He advanced through the ranks in Highland Park and served as fire chief since 2004 in Highland Park and Des Plaines fire departments. He has been our chief here in Hoffman Estates since early July. Chief Alan Wax.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be here today on this beautiful sun-filled September day, similar to the day 20 years ago. Thank you all for being here and allowing me a few minutes to share my thoughts. I especially wish to thank the Hoffman Estates Veteran Memorial Commission for hosting this memorial ceremony today on the 20th anniversary of the day that changed our country and the world forever. And as always, we thank our partners in uniform, our partners in service, those who served and continue to serve in the armed forces. These men and women continue to set an example of selflessness, honor, dedication, and sacrifice for which we cannot adequately say thank you. September 11th, 2001. Most of us remember what we were doing when we heard or saw the events unfold, and we were riveted to our TV sets. The day is often compared to other disasters of other generations, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the assassination of President Kennedy, and so on. One difference here, which brought this closer to home, was that we were watching it live on our TVs. Thus, we don't just remember the emotions that we felt, we remember watching the moment the second plane flew into the South Tower, immediately realizing that our country was under attack. We watched the towers fall and realized the life loss would inevitably be large, and we felt deflated, helpless, and vulnerable. It doesn't seem possible that it's been 20 years, and it certainly seems mind-boggling that the young adults going into college today, those that are the future leaders of our society, have no personal memory of the events that unfolded that day in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Many of the firefighters and police officers being hired nowadays have no personal recollection of that day and the sacrifices made by their forefathers in service. Therefore, it is up to all of us to teach the next generation the meaning and the impact of the events of 9/11. It is important that as individuals and as a community, we always remember and never forget the events of that day, and that we honor the 2,977 innocent civilians who lost their lives that day, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, 60 police officers, and 2,574 citizens of 78 countries on the planes, in the buildings, and on the ground. At the same time, we need to recognize that the impact of that day and its toll on the rescuers and survivors continues. Recently published is an estimate that more individuals have died from 9/11 related illnesses than were lost in the initial 2001 attacks. And this doesn't even address the emotional scars and associated medical issues related to those. As United States Attorney General Merrick Garland wrote recently and reported in Newsweek, in the decades since 9/11, tens of thousands of responders and survivors have become sick or died because of their exposure. As we mark the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, it is important to acknowledge that the tragedy of that day continues. Because the effects that day continue, as I stated before, we must always remember 9/11, and we must continue to educate the younger generations and provide support to the victims and their families. But it is not just the loss we experienced that we should remember. We must also not forget how this country came together after the initial shock of the attacks. Despite the struggling economy, despite the losses, patriotism was high. Enthusiasm for a unified country and cohesive purpose was strong. Support for our service members and emergency responders was at unprecedented levels. We should take this message to today. As you know, we face terrorism in many forms that many of us never fathomed when we were younger. A terrorist-like virus, homegrown terrorism, cyber terrorism, instability in many parts of the world, including many parts of our country, political and partisan conflict. I pray that we remember the lessons of 9/11 and its aftermath, and that we actively work toward unified solutions, set patriotic goals, and implement collaborative strategies for peace, for healing of our differences, and for tackling our collective challenges. 9/11 also demonstrated that we must strive to not let our pain and loss prevent us from improving and becoming better. After 9/11, our homeland security measures became focused and stronger. Information sharing across agencies improved. Foreign and military intelligence was enhanced. Airplane cockpits and airports were better secured. There were vast developments in understanding, study, and treatment of post-traumatic stress disorders. And crisis management processes and related organizational structures were greatly improved. We must always strive to glean good from tragedy. As police officers and firefighters who see terrible situations daily, we recognize that the fight for freedom and balance in our society never ends. We know that achieving peace, stability, and safety for our citizens is an uphill battle, especially when times are tough and society is tired, as is currently the case. Along with our comrades in arms in the military, we are ready to tackle the challenges together and proactively. As always, your Hoffman Estates responders stand ready to act and continually seek to improve. As just one example of this, over the past few weeks and continuing for a few more, our police officers and firefighters are jointly conducting hands-on scenario-based training on responding to active shooter situations. A scenario we hope never plays out here, but it is important that we are ready should it happen. I can tell you that years ago, as a fire chief looking in from the outside, I was impressed then how the Hoffman Estates Fire and Police Departments were the first to develop joint police-fire active threat response teams, long before any of the others were doing so, setting a standard for other departments in the area to emulate. I can tell you that your police and fire departments are proud to continue to set a high bar for collaboration and preparedness, all in the pursuit of excellence in public service. We are so grateful for the continuous support that you, our citizens of the community, our elected officials, and our businesses have shown to our police and fire departments and our members throughout many, many, many years, and that you continue to show us today. Thank you. Your encouragement sustains us as we carry out our missions for our society. And I can promise you this, just like those responders did on 9/11, and just like we in the emergency services have done forever, we promise that we will give our all, using every resource available to provide compassionate care, assistance, rescue, and emergency response in your time of need, even if it means the ultimate sacrifice. So on this Patriot Day 2021, this day of service and remembrance, 20 years after that historic and solemn day, it is fitting that we come together as a community to remember 9/11, to pray for our fallen brothers and sisters, to share in our memories and our grief, and to bolster each other and commit to moving forward as a society as we celebrate the strength and character of our community. Thank you for listening to me for these few minutes. I ask that as you go about enjoying this beautiful day, you please take some time to reflect on 9/11 and to pray for those who were lost. Bless you all and bless our Hoffman Estates community, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Wax. At this time, I would call for a moment of silence to honor those killed on September 11, 2001, and all the men and women killed and injured in the past 20-year war on terror. Present arms. Order arms. With the Hoffman State's Police and Fire Color Guard, please retrieve the colors of our country.
Color guard. Forward. March. D10. Halt. Right. Take. Freeze and halt. Order. Halt. Prepare to retrieve colors. Retrieve. Order. Mark time. March. Left. Turn. Forward. March.
Two. Veterans Commission, attention. Right face. Forward march. Halt. Right face. Fall out. That concludes our ceremony for today. I want to thank everybody again for coming, and to remind everybody not to forget today, 20 years later, or forget 9/11 on 2001. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.